Hi, welcome to NSU College of Psychology. I'm Dr. Jamie Tartar, and I'm here today with Dr. Julius Thomas. So today we're going to talk a lot about performance and especially sport performance. So we have our amazing expert here to talk to us about sport performance. Many of you might be familiar with the name Julius Thomas since he has a really long and professional and successful background in professional sports. One of the interesting things about Julius is his pathway, what got him from being a professional athlete to a doctor of psychology. So I think the first thing I'd love to do is first welcome you to Shark Chats. And I was hoping you could talk to us a little bit about your background and your story.
Well, thanks, JT. But now that I'm doctor, do I get to go as JT1 or am I still JT2?
You're still JT2.
Okay.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Okay, perfect. We won't. You know what? I'm just going to let that one pass since we're on camera. So this is the only pass you get for
I
jokes.
think part of being optimized with performance is accepting one's age. So I'm okay.
It's true. In the older adult clinic here on campus, we read a great book. It was called From Aging to Saging. So that's the language, we're switching the language to saging. But thanks for having me. I'm excited to get to talk with one of my favorite people, one of my mentors that really has been instrumental in helping me to grow into becoming Dr. Thomas, but also a lot of the other professional things that I've been able to do. So yeah, we're gonna do what we always do, is just talk a little performance and talk about things that I don't think that many people talk about a lot.
Which is what?
Well, we talk a lot about where's the field of performance going.
We talk a lot about where is the field of performance going.
Mm-hmm. And we also talk about who's driving it right now. Yeah. And are the people that should be driving it? Or are there some people on the clinical and academic side that maybe should have the wheel, but how do we get them in the driver's seat? And then what's that even look like for the future?
Yeah. Are you saying that non-experts are telling people what to do and some of the information may not be correct?
I'm 100% saying that in wellness and performance industries, people that don't have the clinical background, academic training, are giving people like recommendations. They're being trusted to advise people on how they should be living life, the ways they should be approaching their performance and well-being. And I think they may be missing some to more than some things.
And I think what people listening may not understand is I think we've been having this conversation for 8 or 9 years, for a long time.
Yeah, at least 8 years.
Because when I first met you, you were transitioning from the NFL into academia. Mm-hmm. And I think the most consistent thing about our relationship has been this conversation.
It has been. And I remember vividly sitting in your office, which was a crazy experience. Like, first, we should probably go into that.
Yeah.
That 6 months before that, I was out practicing on the practice field when the Dolphins were sharing the same campus as Nova Southeastern. And then fast forward 6 months later, I'm sitting in your office and you're quizzing me about brain and brain injury and brain risk while we were able to see the current players practicing on the field. And I used to have like a surreal moment. I like, wait, that used to be my career out there, but now here I am inside with air conditioning, which is a better office, to be honest. And now I'm talking about the brain, and I had never thought about the brain. I never thought about how it functioned. I never thought about the regions and the neurons and all the synapses and all the things that I got to learn when you so kindly signed me up for your 400 level neuroscience class when my last biology class was sophomore year of high school. But I survived it.
Well, I think what was different too is I think sometimes you meet somebody who is so intensely curious that it infects you. And I think you were so intensely curious about not understanding, but dominating the knowledge. And I think that was, for me, really exciting. And
so you're saying that sometimes even professors or advisors, they need some mentees that have some energy and they can bring some passion back to what that day-to-day is like. And honestly, you were amazing. I remember you sent me my very first research article. I think it was written by Dr. Banks and Dr. Mishi Jha from Miami. And it was about sustained attention. And I remember going through this first research article and I got 2 paragraphs in, and it was one of the most humbling experiences I've ever had, because I was like, I don't know any of these words. I don't even really know how to understand this style of writing, this way of presenting information. But then I told myself, you're going to make it through this whole article even if you don't understand any of it all, and you're going to read research articles until you understand how to read research articles. And then I think I used to this was before I had kids and I was just like a single guy living in Fort Lauderdale. And I think I probably text you every night for several months being like, send me another research article. I need another one.
I'm hungry. Yeah, but I think that point though speaks to what we talk a lot about, is that you started doing something that was new for you, that you weren't very good at first. So now you're at a crossroads. Do I get frustrated and quit? Or if I want to perform really well, do I just stick with it over and over and over again and chip away at it? And I think that's where we can run into problems with maybe younger people, but everybody, with just that understanding of that you need time in the game, time in practice. You didn't understand the article at first, but then the more time you read those articles, the mud starts to clear, right? And you can see through the water a little bit more easily.
100%. It makes me think about that first summer after because I was a business major, and so I came back to school and I really just had this passion for helping people. And I remember sitting in your office and talking about how as researchers, it's really like Fort Knox. Like there's all this amazing gold, and that gold is the information that we have. And I kept asking you this question of like, well, why don't more people know this then? And I think that was a big shift in our relationship, and something that I was able to bring really to the bond that we were developing was, when you're here in academia, everyone knows. And so the concept of, wait, you don't know any of this, I think was really exciting for us to have debates. And I would always say, when are we going to get this information that we're learning and finding out to people before they decide to come back to get a doctorate or end up in one of our healthcare institutions? And I've always been very passionate about like, what are we going to do to disseminate this outside of academia?
Yeah, you're right. And for those of you listening, may not be familiar with this idea, but it's a huge problem. You brought it up right away. You've kind of opened my eyes to it. But as scientists and psychologists and neuroscientists and researchers, we're really good at producing data and coming up with a finding, right? And then what do? We share it with the other people in our field and we publish it. And maybe 20 people in the field are going to really read that paper. And we do, absolutely, you're right, we do a terrible job at trying to translate that scientific information into a bite or something that people can understand that's still true and that they can do something with it.
Yeah, and that became something that I have been very motivated to solve for the 7 years I've been in academia. And I think it's really related to becoming a PsyD, is being in that science practitioner model, which was the whole purpose of a PsyD, is to be informed by science, to go out and apply it in a way where you can help enrich or benefit or reduce the risk that people suffer from all of the multiple conditions that we see.
Well, the field needs it because I don't want to shock anybody, but scientists are sometimes terrible communicators. So I think the whole field, everybody who wants to have optimized performance can use somebody who's willing to do what you did. You spent thousands of hours learning how to read research articles, but then you also have that skill where you can translate that information without sometimes, with the medium I do, without making it incorrect, right? Keeping the information true, but just sort of translating it, I think, for people is really what that field could use.
100%. I think that's like one of the big values and the big opportunities. And then, well, how do we make it happen, right? It's good to think about conceptually. It's like, hey, this would be very beneficial for people, is if they had a way of getting the stuff hot off the research desk. The problem is it kind of reminds me of like the electron problem, right?
You're such a nerd.
That's true. But you helped make me this way. I didn't have a lot of this.
Tell us about the electron problem, Julius.
But if you think about it, right, like we can know how fast it's going, but we can't know where it is.
Right.
Because you can get so far into the basic science that you start to have problems making it practical. But I think that's the same thing that can happen in academic institutions. We can get so interested in how we want to understand how this molecule behaves under these conditions, or maybe some of us are really nerdy and they did neuron patch clamping and they know how to grab neurons. But we can get so interested in our next discovery and we can go so far down our rabbit holes that even if somebody was to read the paper, their next question would be, well, how does this serve me to help me with my day-to-day problems? And so bringing it back to something that becomes usable and practical to people, I think that has created a gap. And what happens is non-experts come in and they say, I've got this very vague understanding of how that works. And so I'm going to try to explain it to you in a very general way. But then we look at that information, we go, whoa, you did not explain that right. And that can start to create different challenges. And I think that's really one of the opportunities for true qualified experts to start working on solving different problems.
Okay, so before we started filming today, we had a conversation earlier that I'd like to follow up on. And I think we both feel frustrated that there are so many tools that people can use to optimize their performance. They exist, scientists know about them, we know about them, but I think what you see are the same, which are wonderful tools, but they're sort of the same things over and over again. Like a lot of people know about breathing, right? Deep breathing is great, it's a wonderful way to calm your nervous system, but there's a lot of other tools people can use to optimize their performance, things that you've become an expert in. So I thought you could talk to us a little bit about some of that.
Well, no, actually, you said that there's two specific things people can do to help improve their cognition. And like, let's discuss that. Like, what are those two things that you're going to share with us?
So one of the things I think people can do is, more than any, I think one of the more important things to do in life is generally just control your thoughts, right? If you can control your thoughts, you can perform better, right? Because you'll be able to tell yourself that narrative. And I think what a lot of people don't realize, that scientists realize, is everybody talks about cortisol. And we know that cortisol as a stress hormone can influence our performance, right? It can make us feel stressed. It can change the way we're thinking. But cortisol is pretty innocent as a hormone altogether. Like cortisol is a wonderful hormone. We want it to do the things that it does. It does a great job reining in the immune system, giving us energy. But one of the easiest ways to increase cortisol isn't through exercise, which for some weird reason people think, it's through thinking. So when we're thinking stressful thoughts, when we're processing stressful things, that's actually one of the easiest ways for us to release that stress hormone, which can interfere with performance if it's not at, oh, here's that word again, the optimal level, right? We don't want these stress hormones to be too low. We don't want them to be too high. We want to kind of be in that Goldilocks zone. So understanding, so when we talk about things like flow and we talk about things like performance optimization, as far as thinking, what we're really talking about is getting your thoughts controlled in such a way that you're really optimizing the release of these hormones like epinephrine and cortisol and things that can truly affect how your body is moving. So that's one of them. And I think the other important aspect about cognition is just attention. And attention is the most expensive thing your brain does. And I know this is one of your passion projects. I don't want to steal your thunder if you want to pick up on.
No, but maybe we should go into attention second. But I want to stay here with the concept of controlling your thoughts, because this is something that I think a lot about. And after the thousands of hours of therapy and getting to talk with people, I think most people are aware that that would be a really great skill to have, but they don't understand, one, some of the downsides effects of if you don't do it, right? And obviously a lot of those adrenergic hormones that are constantly in your circulatory system will start to really like knock haywire a lot of these big systems in your body that we depend on to be able to function optimally. But also one of the things that is really important in the health research is low-grade chronic inflammation.
Oh, I love that.
And yes, exactly. And so the World Health Organization says that it won't be many years before that is the greatest risk to human health and well-being. And the problem is you can be in low-grade chronic stress just with your thoughts alone. And one of the things that I do, and I'll give you guys a little sneak peek on some of the things that I do when I'm working with people in different therapy settings, but I talk a lot about, we have this Netflix scroll bar. And so here, another thing that kind of bothers me a little bit, not to be critical of anyone, but I love mindfulness. And sometimes when you teach something that's 3,000, 4,000 years old, it's not as easily understood today. And so in mindfulness, they always talk about leaves on a stream. Just imagine your thoughts are like leaves on a stream. And I'm like, yeah, that made sense for like Lao Tzu when he was writing like the Tao Te Ching, but we don't watch leaves on a stream anymore. So people are looking at me like, don't give me this mindfulness stuff. But one thing we do watch is Netflix, Prime Video, right? There's a scroll bar now. And these scroll bars, they go on and they loop. But the human brain can have a scroll bar. It's, 40,000 thoughts a day? And the problem is humans, and you helped me understand this, we have this really bad habit of watching the shows on our mental scroll bar that are going to create cortisol release, stress molecules, stress hormones.
We get rewarded for doing that. Your brain will literally reward
Because
you
it has
for
a
thinking
negativity
negative.
bias.
Yes.
And so when I'm talking to somebody in a clinical setting and they're saying, I can't stop thinking about the way my best friend hurt me, or I can't stop thinking about the fears I have around my financial insecurity, or I can't stop thinking about all the bad things that have happened to me in life. And so one thing I always tell them is, number one, first, that's normal. There's nothing broken about you. The other thing is your brain it has this tendency, if this is negative to the left and this is positive to the right, like your brain is always leaning this way. And so it takes really strong neck muscles to get you back over here. But the problem is if you start to think about chronic negative thoughts, then you start to create mood disorder territory. So you got to ask yourself, how many plays do the worst thoughts and experiences that have happened to you in your life have? Do you have enough mental discipline and enough cognitive control to hit pause when you see yourself watching the scary, your story again? Hit pause, hit the back button, and click onto the most positive thing that happened to you, or the things that you love about life. And so sometimes you know me, I like to use my whiteboard when I'm coaching and when I'm doing therapy and stuff. And so I make people write the story in that little square, the negative one, and then the positive ones. And then we make like this little mock, their own mental shows, scroll bar. And then I ask them, well, how many times have you watched the one about what makes you most anxious? Oh, hundreds of times. And then that's that process that you're talking about. Now you're starting to experience chronic stress. Now your systems are going haywire. Now your sleep's going to SHI. I won't say the other letters. And so helping people to understand how to work through that is how to control those cognitive processes better.
It was shipwreck, if anybody was
Yeah,
wondering.
shipwreck. But it's so hard to do because a lot of times to perform optimally, we have to move through some of our instinctual brain needs and wants and desires. I wouldn't say needs, wants and desires, like salty foods, sugary foods, things that are immediately gratifying. Right? It works really
Brain
well.
wants sugar, but your brain also wants to worry.
Yep, exactly. So these are things I think about, but now we can jump into attention. Let's stop there, jump back in because I love talking about attention.
Right. So we understand that attention is metabolically very expensive, that humans in general are not paying attention 49% of the time. So your brain doesn't want to do it, pretty bad at it. How's that going to affect performance?
Well, one of the things that I really try to normalize for people, because I spend a lot of time working with high performers, and this is just, it's another SHI shipwreck thing, is there's just genetic differences in people's ability to attend. Like everybody wants attention, but attention's like height or like vertical jump. Not everybody can be at the top end of what humans can. Yeah, like you. Yeah, exactly. You jump out the gym. You've been blessed with height, but some people are like, why is it so hard for me to attend? Well, number one, not everybody's going to be great at it, and sometimes you see people, they're wanting to get the level of cognitive function that they find ideal, but they don't even know what their cognition is at. And so I always laugh and I go, well, before we try to push this individual, this athlete, this employee to have better attention, why don't we just test to see where their attention is? And people go, wait, you can test that? You've been testing attention for years in your lab. And I always ask myself, why don't we all have a cognitive test to see where we are at baseline or how we were born before we start pushing ourselves to try to be something that maybe just won't
And it's
be.
such a transient thing too, which we know you start to get stressed. If you're not sleeping, attention's going to be the first thing that goes. And we have tools that we can test attention in the moment too. As somebody who's testing performance and wanting to optimize performance, we can test people and we can understand pretty readily, are they having attentional lapses right now? And what does that mean for their performance?
Or you'll get a kick out of this one. And this, I promise you, this actually is a legit story. It happened to me 3 weeks ago. I was doing some work with one of the executives I work with, and he was telling me, I'm having a lot of trouble with focus, and I'm trying to find the right supplement that can help me with focus, right?
Oh, it's always a supplement.
So what do, right? You start going online. And where do you go online first? Do you go to the National Institutes of Health? Do you go to
I go straight to Amazon.
right? Amazon, because you know supplements. But most people just hit it in Google. And where does it take you to? It takes you to a video. And it takes you to some person on TikTok talking about how they just started taking 10 milligrams of ginkgo powder, and now all of a sudden they have this amazing attention, which is probably not true. They have no data to support that. But I started to ask him about something I know is really important to you. And I said, well, how are you sleeping?
That's a $1 million question.
And he said, well, I've been sleeping about 3.5 to 4 hours a night
Like, what?
for 10 years.
Is he okay?
And I said, this is the difference in being able to talk to somebody that has academic and clinical training versus somebody that doesn't. Your normal coach out there wouldn't have caught that. They would have told you about the long list of supplements that they always recommend to people. But since I've had the opportunity of being trained under you and having so many conversations about what you're one of the best to me in the world at is sleep, I go, that I could give you $1,000 of supplements every day and it wouldn't come close to what would happen if we could get you sleeping the recommended amount of sleep time. Or if we can get you into extended sleep, which probably is impossible because of the demands in your profession, but if we could get you to 7.5, 8 hours a night, I promise you, you will see a major increase in your focus. But why don't more people know the cost towards their cognitive performance when they're doing something like being at a sleep debt chronically?
I think people just don't see it, right? So we don't know what our blood sugar is at any moment in time. We're not very good at assessing our own cognitive states. We're pretty crappy at it. But if we took away, if we took away 1,000 calories from him every day for 3 months, he'd see right away what the cost of that was. Well, he'd see it 3 months later. If you take away 4 hours of sleep from somebody, the cost is neurological mostly, and you don't see it. And I think people don't recognize the problems that are building up. But we know without a doubt that if you take sleep away from people, there's going to be a cognitive consequence to that, and a lifetime cognitive consequence as well. So I think people are getting better at it. I think they're understanding that sleep really is, a superpower, sleeping well. It's a Swiss Army knife of health. I think we need more people like you who have the knowledge and the ability to communicate that information. But if anybody wants to perform better, only good things happen when you sleep. Sleep is going to make everything better, right? When we're sick, our body's going to put us to sleep because it understands, right, that that's how we heal. So you're never wasting time when you're sleeping.
And the other thing is, when you're working with performers, right, they want to be at their best. They constantly want to be at their best. But how is it even remotely possible for you to be showing up at your best with your decision making, with your attention, with your emotion regulation, any of it, if you're only sleeping 4 hours a night? Like, it's not just attention. Almost every cognitive domain that we can measure, and we can measure with really accurate precision using the right tools, is going to suffer a huge blow. And you're looking for supplements.
And supplements aren't going to clean your brain, right? We know that when you sleep, all that like metabolic waste is cleaned out, and you need deep sleep to achieve that. So there's no shortcut to sleeping. One of the things we talked about earlier too, talking about sleep, is I think one of the not sleeping necessarily, but another I think performance enhancer could be non-sleep deep rest. I think people who are very cognitively active during the day, their brain's running, right? It's like driving your car for 7 straight hours, taking these punctuated moments throughout the day to just give your brain some rest that's not necessarily sleep. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, one of the things that I've been really interested in is how does cognitive function erode across time of active cognitive functioning, right? So like
cognitive CrossFit.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we know like, hey, if you're doing squats or if you're holding a plank hold, you can only hold it for so long before you're going to have to drop. But we don't know how cognitive endurance is eroding across a day, it's eroding across a 4-hour span, or it's eroding across 1 year, 2 years to a decade.
We have that mindset like, oh, I just got to push through. I just
Yeah,
got to keep working.
That's my main thing. I see people, they're like, no, I'm gonna put in a 10-hour day today, no breaks. Look at me, I'm a beast. And I'm like,
and I only sleep 4 hours a night.
But if we equate that to a squat, and you squatted for 10 hours with no breaks throughout a day, what weight would have to be on the bar by the end of that day? Might you have gotten more out of your brain if you would have worked really hard for 2 hours and then stopped, right? Because we know deep work is important, right? It's almost like sleep. Like if you're working hard for 10 minutes and you're constantly task switching really hard on the brain, really hard to get great results, like deep work, this thing that we never get anymore because there's always a ding and a person that needs the thing right now. But if you could come into deep work for 2 hours, come out, take a break, and then go back in, how much more could you have gotten out of your cognitive performance if we did that? And then why don't people know, like, where do people go to find out this information? Like, and I ask you the critical components of our field, not just others, right? Because I think that sometimes if you're going to critique, you got to turn the mirror and look at yourself. Why haven't psychology and neuroscience, like, why haven't we made more products? Why haven't we given people places where they can go to find out these things and utilize them in their day-to-day?
Yeah, because this is our ongoing conversation. Because again, I think is an important point to communicate to the audience is that I think what most people may not understand about scientists and people who work in academia is there's kind of a virtue behind not selling ideas or products. And so we're trained from the very beginning that information is free. We share information with each other for free. We communicate with each other. But any inkling that something could be monetized is seen as sort of dirty. So I don't think there's a good translation from the scientific discoveries to the application of that information. And I think that's missing. And I think there's something inherently good about science that's being done when there isn't a product in mind, there's not a monetary value behind it, that most scientists just want to discover something. A lot of that happens serendipitously. But there is the cost, and I think the real cost is that information doesn't always get translated, if that makes sense.
No, it makes perfect sense. And I think it was one of the funny things that really stood out to me from being a person that came into the scientific community later in life. And I'll never forget that I had this really rich experience when I was working at Memorial Rehabilitation Hospital. And at first I didn't know that there were people that had long hospital stays, right? Like I thought everybody went to the acute hospital. Like, hey, here's this emergent thing. You're there 1 or 2 days and you go home. I didn't know there were whole hospitals for people that you're not going to go home for a while. You're going to be here for 2 weeks, up to 6 weeks. And when I was working as one of the members of the psychology team there, I got a chance to see hundreds of patients with hundreds of conditions. And one of our roles was to educate them about the condition, what causes the condition, if there are some we don't understand well enough to talk about the causes. They're more like lifestyle based. And then what can you do to manage and try to prevent that condition from getting worse? And every single person I talked to, they said, oh, I wish I would have known this sooner. I wish I would have known this sooner. And day after day, I kept hearing it and I go, you know what? Doctors would make real bad athletes because everybody would be standing around on defense, but they wouldn't be stopping the other team. They'd be waiting for the goal to be scored, the basket to be made, the touchdown to happen. And they'd be like, this is what happened. The ball was traveling at this velocity. They ran this play. They scored on this part of the end zone. That's called depression. That's called heart disease. And I kept on thinking, well, on this team, of healthcare and academic scientists, whose job is it to go stop things? And then I started asking everybody, like, whose job is it to go stop things? And no one has that role yet. And so it's been something that has baffled me for the last 5 years of, well, can we commit like 20% of our professionals to go get on the offensive side of the ball? Mm-hmm. And what are we going to do to make sure that information gets out of academic settings, mm-hmm. so that we can go get on the offensive, give people this stuff that's going to help them know sooner? And that's, one of the reasons why I started Optimal Performance and why I'm really passionate to do that, and several reasons for what I think it can become. Because like we've been talking about for a long time, what's the pathway to go from I'm clinically trained, I'm academically trained, I'm a scientist, I know research, to now I can go out and provide my knowledge as a service to people. And until we have that pathway, we can't populate the space with enough people. And that's something that I'm really looking forward to growing and doing. And I think it's going to be valuable.
Mm-hmm. As part of Optimal Performance, which I think it's amazing that you've taken this on. It's a kind of a big burden in a way, because I don't think there's another company quite like that. What do you think would be your overarching goal, and as far as like communicating that information?
Well, it's something that I think about a lot, right? Like, first off, you have to start with like some pillars, right? Like, mm-hmm. It's very hard to build a brand, and it's very hard to build a brand when you've been an athlete and you've become a scientist and psychologist, because there's some gaps that we have in what it means to build a brand. But the pillars I have is Optimal Performance is about helping people to maximize performance plus maximizing well-being. Mm-hmm. Because I've seen firsthand what can happen if you have amazing performance and poor well-being. Not only is performance on its way down, but so is life satisfaction, so is health span, so is joy span, like a lot of the things that we study. The other thing is I'm really focused on helping to provide consumers with high quality information. The same thing I was thinking about 7 years ago, yeah, when we were in your office, and the same thing I was thinking about 4 years ago, when people were telling me they needed to know sooner. And then the other side of that is, how can you create a pathway and professional opportunities for people that are established in science, in clinical and academic spaces, or people that are entering them, so that they actually can have a way to go work. Like, we all know that when you enter an academic program, we're going to be able to place people in hospitals, we're going to be able to place people in community clinics, and we're going to be able to place people in university positions. But until we have a pathway for placing people in wellness in the performance industry, there's no way a young person can commit to heading that way. Because at the end of the day, everyone has to pay bills. Most people, or half the people, are going to want to have children and do things with them. And it's very unclear how we can establish a true pathway into what's probably like a $6 trillion global industry. And knowing that we're going to get there, and I'm of the belief that we're going to do better because of our training, that's the goal. That's what I hope Optimal Performance can come over the next decade. How to do it? No, that's going to be figured out.
Well, I think if anybody does it, it's going to, because I mean, I've told you that I think one of the things I'm most amazed about is since we met, we've had these initial conversations. Before you started graduate school, you had that message and you had that idea and you had that goal, and then you had to take some undergraduate classes, and that didn't change you. And then you started working on your doctorate. And I think when you work on your doctorate, there are so many training opportunities and so many offshoots where people are going to try to steer you into one area or steer you into another area. And I think what's amazing to me, and having seen this happen over and over again, is that you have stayed dedicated to this one idea, that nothing really took you off that path. And so you had that goal, this is what I want to do, I'm going to get a doctorate to do this. And all these years later, that goal, you've just been really steadfast with that. And now you're Dr. Thomas, starting a company to do exactly what you said you were going to do 8 years ago.
Yeah, no, it has been hard, because sometimes you may have a vision
Mhm.
that other people don't necessarily see
Mhm.
how that vision can become reality.
And you've had some haters.
Yeah, of course, there's always going to be some haters, but a lot of times the hate is actually protective.
And they don't understand when they see something that someone hasn't done before. There might be some confusion. Well, that's not how it's done.
Yeah, or they'll say, well, it doesn't exist. Why would you commit yourself towards trying to create something that doesn't exist? So there were some people that when I was telling them about the concept of optimal performance and the value of it, and they said, but we're clinical people. We don't work in prevention. There's no opportunities in prevention. It's hard for us to go compete in that space. But one of the things that really was enlightening to me and it stood out is when I was applying to do my clinical internship, to finish your APA accredited doctorate in clinical psychology, there's I think like 140 plus clinical internship sites. And so you're always searching your keyword because you're looking for the kind of training that you want to get to set up your next step. And so I'm typing in the keyword prevention. 0 search, keyword search results. And so in my head, I'm going, hey, that's the problem again. Is the problem that the people that are academically and clinically trained wouldn't go kick the A word out there in the prevention and wellness
Asphalt.
space? Yeah, asphalt. They wouldn't go kick asphalt in that space? Or is it there's no road to get there? And so that's something that really stood out to me. And I thought, we have created this function of healthcare and research. And these are some of the oldest industries and oldest like parts of human life. Like I was in Greece a couple of years ago, and I had this opportunity to go to Athens, and they're like, here's where Hippocrates, he first started treating people's conditions, and he was trying to find a way to help people. And it hit me. I'm like, wow, 400 years before we changed the calendar to after Christ, Hippocrates was waiting for people to come to him with a ow or this doesn't look right, and like, hey, what can you do for me? And we started doing academic research thousands of years ago. Our field needs to evolve for the future. And I believe our field needs to evolve for the future, not just because there is monetary value in the future, but it's also for the future professionals in our space. And I think that academia has some headwinds ahead of it. It used to be the place where you could come, invest your time, invest these years of really hard, challenging work to be able to create a middle to upper middle class lifestyle for yourself and your family. But if we don't expand and grow and adopt new technologies and new opportunities to give people a lifestyle that they deserve for coming and getting in our years and years of what it takes to get there, then it's going to be very challenging for those people to go out and compete, which is the weirdest thing. And it's hard to explain this to people that stay in academia that, hey, when you go outside there right now, we're actually not able to compete with our nice, shiny degrees. The consumers are saying, so what?
Who's the expert?
And you know how they determine who the expert is? How many followers do you have? How many times I have said, hey, I want to work with this company, and this company says, hey, we think you're awesome. We think you have great information. We love what you're trying to do, but you don't have enough followers.
So are you saying that in the world of performance, there's a true death of expertise?
Not only is there a true lack of expertise, we have to be humble enough to play the game that allows you to win. But when you're an academic and you're a doctor of something, there's so much
That's like
pride.
telling a fish to walk.
Yeah. Well, and there's just so much arrogance and pride a little bit of like, no, I was in college for 17 total years of my life. I am the top. However, the floor got kicked out from under this new generation of emerging doctors. 40 years ago, yes, that puts you to the top of the social hierarchy in whatever country you were in the world. But now social media has levelized it in a way where people go, okay, so you have a doctorate, so what? How's that going to help me? Why should I listen to you? In the past, it was you listen to me because I'm the doctor. But that's no longer the thing. Now people are deciding to listen
Like,
to.
I got Joe Schmo on Instagram telling me something different. He's got 2 million followers.
And she's entertaining. Not only does she just give me
Are you
information.
saying scientists aren't entertaining?
She entertains. Absolutely not. I look about it all the time, and I think about how I put together this great PowerPoint presentation. It's static. No one wants to watch it. I actually was just reading an article that Syracuse University did, and they were talking about how people consume like health information on social media platforms. And what they found is like 2 really big problems. Number one, people are more inclined to consume health information when they first view that reel as entertaining. Like that's the first thing that the person wants to see, isn't entertaining. The second part is that they're more likely to follow the recommendations based on entertaining social media posts and less likely to believe the actual evidence-based information. So they're grabbing people with entertainment. We've created this attention economy, and they have your attention. Then you believe them more, and you're least likely to believe the person that spent 10, 15, 20 years studying that, treating people for that. And so what are we going to do as academia?
If we have the scientists who we agree, maybe not all of us are the best at communicating information, not super duper entertaining, and don't have time. Like I can't imagine setting up social media. I'm really busy. Most people don't have the bandwidth for that. So we have the information, and then we have a population of people that need prevention, that need this information. And so I think that's what we need, is the person who can be in the middle and communicating to both sides.
And that's essentially what kind of made a shift for me. Like I think as most people, and like I'm psychologically aware enough to admit my own biases. And right, the first bias you have when you start a business is like, how do I make enough money to do the things that I want to do in life?
But don't go into science.
What they see right now. But how can we switch that to in the future? It's go into science so that you can get the credibility, but then now here's this place where you can go work that's now going to allow you to have an earnings potential for that.
Whereas as a scientist, though, I think a lot of people, they think anyway. They think that you're a shill for big industry. Like, so if
That's true.
I kind of feel like,
right.
Give me the shill money if you think I'm ready. I've got 2 kids in college.
Exactly. And so like, when I first started growing Optimal Performance, it was just mainly for me to like be able to grow the business around like what I could do as a service. And it started to do really well. But then I realized, man, I still have the same damn problem. One person, one guy out there swinging his axe, holding up his hand, waving. It's not going to create the actual change we need to have. The actual problem we have here in our culture is that we have the highest gross producing economy the world has ever seen and the worst health and well-being. Something's broken here. How do you get that? How do you have the most GDP you've ever seen on earth? And Dr. Nierenberg taught me that out of the 11 biggest developed countries, we have the worst health and well-being. What do we do to fix that? How do we get to maximizing performance plus maximizing well-being? And high performance is broken. Why is high performance broken? No offense, but maybe Navy SEALs aren't the absolute best people we could have to talk about how a corporate employee could be performing. And no disrespect to Navy SEALs, they're kick-ass. They've done things that I'll never be able to do. But the likelihood, and this is a person that has worked in behavioral health for a long time, the likelihood that the accountant or the marketing director at X company is going to assume the lifestyle of a Navy SEAL is 0. But it's really cool to have these people come in. It's inspirational for the moment. But it's not creating the behavioral changes that we need to have. And it's really cool to have the Peloton instructor or like the very cute yoga lady come in and talk about well-being. And like they're very popular and they're entertaining, but we haven't seen the shift. So something's broken. And it's the same thing that we've been talking about today. Like the experts have to show up. High performance failed me. I had everything I wanted. The year of my life where I made the most money I've ever could imagine making was the year I felt the worst. we need to fix high performance. We need to make it integrated with well-being.
And do you think there could be something to high performance for everyone? Is this high performance only for the people who are already great or the people who are already at the top?
No, I look at it a little differently. I look at it in this way, and this is only because I've been fortunate enough to have these experiences. So I also try to keep in mind that some of the things that I'm seeing, it's just because I've been blessed enough to be in multiple spaces like that. So on one end is sports performance. In sports performance, you have designed environments to put a human being in the most optimal place possible. But what's happening in a sports performance environment? You've got psychologists, you've got athletic trainers, you've got PTs, you've got physicians, you have psychiatrists, you've got That's us. Like the experts are there. Or you go to a rehab hospital, which is another great place, but what's there? Ophthalmologists, cardiologists, physicians, psychologists. But who's missing? What have we done for the most of our population? Who's designed spaces for them? Who's designed the products, the ways of looking at things, the ways of going about your day for the, 300 million people? No one. We haven't attempted to develop things for them. And so that's what I think is going to happen over time when we start to create these pathways of helping academics and clinically trained people to have a place where they can earn a living for themselves to do and think and create, while also helping them solve our lack of marketing problem so that people can't just continue to ignore us. But if all those things can come together, now we can actually start to see well-being increase, chronic illness and disease decrease, because the research as well as we all do, we don't have to be so sick of a country. We could, through some behavioral health lifestyle changes, get significantly healthier, have significant less morbidity, greater lifespan. Like the United States of America, lifespan is going down for the first time in 70 years?
Completely counterintuitive.
With all the science we have, with all the information we know, but it's trapped. It's trapped here. And we have to work really hard and really diligently and have the courage to go out there and compete in the attention economy.
Well, I think if anybody can do it, I think it's you. You're uniquely positioned. And I know that you talk about me as your mentor, but I also think in the the 8 years or so that we've known each other, I think I've learned just as much, if not more, from you. A lot, right? A lot from you. How to be calm.
Yeah.
You challenge me. You push me. You make me think differently. So I'm really grateful, I think, to our friendship and collaborations that we've had, I think, over the last 8 years. And I've changed as a person. I've changed the way I think. And I know that NSU is really grateful for all of the work that you've done and just the inspiration I think you've provided for students and faculty. So thank you so much for sharing your wisdom today.
Yeah, and then the one thing I'll say is no big social change ever happened through one person. My biggest challenge moving forward is going to be, how do I get individual performers, academics, and clinicians to lock arms and function as a team so that we can actually go out and apply what we've learned and apply what we research in a way that creates a greater benefit for people as a whole. And one of the things that I know you and I are very passionate about doing is trying to find ways to do that. And that's one of the reasons why you started the Society for Sports Neuroscience, and I'm currently the president. And we have a conference every year of pulling people together. Like, let's pull people together. Let's do research together. Let's have conversations together. Let's inspire one another. And so those continued efforts, we had to just keep stacking them. Then over time, you have enough really great people in the same room, you start to get some really great results. And that's one of the things that I learned from sports is I've been on some terrible teams. I've been on some championship teams. But when you start to look around the room and go, wow, we have a lot of really talented people in here, then you're able to do some pretty incredible things. And I think that's what going forward looks like for me, looks like for what my career is going to be is, man, can I create a team with enough great, talented people to go do some things that can create some social change while also being very beneficial for the people that are doing it. That sounds like a win-win. And, you know, I'm all about win-wins.
You're all winning. Well, I think you can do it, and I can't wait to check in again in 8 years and see all the amazing things that you've done.
But I already signed you up, so
I'm in it.
you have to be involved. That's happening because you first start by the people that you
Can I be the
believe in.
quarterback?
I'm gonna tell you exactly. So I had this conversation with some professional athletes the other day, with some basketball players, and I said, "Hey, you can be the quarterback, but you have to know what all the players are doing."
I don't want to be the quarterback anymore.
Yeah. So you could be one of the the you know.
All right, I'll take it. I don't know what any of those other jobs are, so you can say anything and I'll just say
You
okay.
gonna
at this
catch?
point.
You gonna kick the football? Somebody has to kick field goals.
I'm just happy to be along for the ride. So, thank you.
No, thank you too. And the fun is in building. And
Yeah.
I think that's what we have in common. Is like, how do you build?
Great.
How do you look at the potential for something to become
Mhm.
and then go solve all those little mini problems along the way? And I'll keep nudging you and all the other great, amazing experts we have here at Nova Southeastern to give me a little bit of your time. I don't want to take all of your time, but can I get 10% of it to come help solve these problems? Can we do something really incredible together? How can I push people? No little nudge administration. How can I push people to say, hey, can we invest a little bit of the time and resources we have here of some of the most incredible, you know, clinical directors and researchers and clinicians to move into a space that really needs us, even if that's not something that we did for the last 500 years.
Yeah.
But we don't want to become seers, you know?
You don't want to become Sears.
No, Sears do not get mad at me. You guys are great. I got my tires changed there a couple of times in high school.
Yeah.
But if you don't innovate and you become antiquated,
Just get left behind.
you die on the vine.
Yeah. Well, if anyone's going to do it, again, I think you're the person to do it.
Well, you see it, you can go after it,
Yep.
and you chase dreams. And it's better if you can chase a dream that is going to be beneficial for other people.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, thank you. That's the perfect ending, I think.
Thanks, JT.
Thank you, everybody, for being here with us today. And we hope you learned something. And if you want to learn more about some of the work we're doing, you can check out Optimal Performance. Is there a website?
Yep, optimalperformancesystem.com. I also have Optimal Performance on all the social media channels that you enjoy, except TikTok. I have to find some experts that are going to help me make a bunch of TikTok videos so that we can populate that with expert advice. But Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter. So absolutely anything you can do to help follow Optimal Performance there actually gives Optimal Performance the ability to compete in the attention economy so that we can win contracts and win the opportunity to get out in front of more people to provide them something that is going to be entertaining, but at the same time, be really good information. So
if you want to see us in real life and how funny we are, you can always check out the Society for Sports Neuroscience and come to the conference and learn all about.
Where's the conference going to be this year?
It's going to be at Nova Southeastern University. So check us out. Usually the conference is in February, and it's all about sports neuroscience and some of the things we've been talking about.
Really incredible people. A lot of really interesting, hot off the press research. If it's confusing, you don't understand it, don't worry. Maybe we'll even do something this year where we do like a translation, like podcast. Remember we did that last year? Maybe we should bring that back.
We're going to bring it back.
We do like a little podcast and then have them translate it. And then maybe we could even ask our good friend Carlos if he can drop that on the Shark Chats YouTube channel.
Thank you so much for spending time with us today. We hope that you learned something and that you enjoyed all of the insightful and amazing information that Dr. Julius Thomas shared with us. And we would like to say, go Sharks from Nova Southeastern University. Thank you.